Ecclesiastes 11 tells us to cast our bread on the waters, and I bet you've heard that verse. Have you ever taken bread to a pond, which I guess we aren't supposed to do anymore, but you cast the bread onto the water and you wait for ducks to come to get those morsels? That used to be so fun to do when I was a kid. Well, that's not what this verse is telling us to do. I read one meaning that said it's to do something good or take a risk, usually without expecting very much in return, that you should make time to offer assistance to others. So in other words, this phrase could be a metaphor for being generous without expecting anything in return. I think as parents, we learn this especially when our children become adults. There might be a time when they have a financial need or any kind of need really, and there are some that loan or give them children with money with interest, or they hold it over their heads and expect and demand something in return. But most likely those type of agreements end up with family disputes, discord, and even separation. If the payback's not timely or doesn't happen, or gratitude is not spoken, or any number of things. We learn that to give is to give, period. Cast the bread we've been given and give, and let it go, allowing Christ to be our return, not those we gave it to. I suppose that's the highest form of giving. Back in the Bible days, this could have been referring to a shipping venture that required great patience for the return and investment. It seemed to be good at times to invest or work for a return that could not immediately be seen. Casting bread is seen as a symbol for sharing. We break bread together. Jesus shared bread with the masses and with those closest to him, and we're even told to break bread with our enemies, or to feed our enemies. Recently, we experienced something with some guests in our home and had given them something to them, a gift, and their reply was, "How can we ever repay you?" Of course, we told them it doesn't work like that. And when we're given something that we are grateful for, we want to give back. But this passage of casting our bread is about being the one who gives and expects nothing back. This act releases the receiver, and it enables us to receive the blessing of giving and trusting God for our provision. Verse 4 says, "If we observe the wind, we won't plant seed, and if we gaze at the clouds, we won't reap." And furthermore, we don't even know the way of the wind or how a child grows in the womb. So in verse 5, it says, we don't know the works of God who made everything. We are told to sow our seed by morning and by evening, to not withhold our hand, because we don't know which will prosper. The seed by morning or the one by evening, or both alike, might be good. I love that visual of opening our eyes to the sunrise with the thought of casting our bread and going to bed by the moonlight, and still giving and planting and sowing, trusting the one who created the sun and the moon to be our sustenance as we cast and sow. Little kids often say, "Well, I shared with him, why isn't he sharing with me?" Teens might then move into the attitude of they cleaned their room and cleared the table, so now they deserve to have the keys to the car. And then young adults work and give some of what they earn to maybe a church or others, and demand or feel entitled that God owes them for all the things they've done. If we choose that attitude from childhood to older age, we become miserable in our giving and our receiving, because it's like this seesaw ride of up and down but going nowhere. Casting our bread on the water with no expected return enables us to freely give because we've been freely given to. It's not easy when we give, especially to those around us, than when we're not ever thanked or patted on the back or even given in return. People are not our blessers, God is. And he sees and he helps us as we learn to do good, take a risk, love generously, and then never give a thought once that bread leaves our hands to expect anything in return, except to rest in the knowledge that everything we have is a gift from God to be offered to others. Of course, wisdom is needed and where to give and how much, but it should never be a question of how, or with strings attached, or if you bounce me high, then I'll bounce you. We both just might end up on the ground of that seesaw, bruised and broken, if seesaw casting is all we do. Cast your bread, break the bread, share the bread, and enjoy his return.